Well, just welcome. I think as we gather, the idea grew, as I'm sure you know by now, because I think Dale shared that with you, but that there was a request from some of the members of the Commission on Religion and Race to say, that they felt like it was really important that the members of the church broadly in our conference knew more about the culture and the life of people who were new to this country or new certainly in the previous generation. So this is why we're gathering today. It's like, who is our neighbor? And I think that's the spirit that I am looking forward to here. That I think one of the powerful messages of Jesus in the story of the Good Samaritan is to think about who is our neighbor. And, if we are truly neighbors, where we are linked with each other, whether we're physically together or we're here and all the way into Tonga, for example, we're neighbors. And how is it that we are neighbors together, in the spirit of Jesus? And I think it's hard to be neighbors unless we know more about each other, the times of conversation and checking in. And here, this is a one-sided one, that's for sure, of all Tongans. But the purpose of it all is for, the church more broadly, the dominant culture, if you want to call it that, knows more about Tonga and about Tongan culture and about the Tongan communities here in not just the United States, but right here in our conference, of which there are a large number, as of course you know. So I want to really welcome you and ask each of you to introduce yourselves so that the audience knows who you are and where you are, if you're a pastor, where you're serving, and whether that's a Tongan congregation or a different kind of congregation. And if you're not a pastor, where you attend church and what's that congregation like. So since I'm looking at the screen, I'll just start with you, Anisi.
Oh, thank you so much, Lucia. This is such a great opportunity for us to, to be so proud of who we are. I'm Eunice Towell. I'm a pastor. I serve an all-white congregation in Sebastopol and Forestville, and it's a blessing to know others, from your own culture and your own people. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm so grateful for you, Sean, and everyone here today.
I'll tell you, it's my pleasure, totally. Luisa, would you introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Lucia, for the opportunity. And echoing what Eunice had shared, it's a great opportunity to be part of this panel discussion and to come together and try to unpack what it is to be a neighbor to everyone, and what it is to be a neighbor as a woman, as a person of color, as a Pacific Islander, all those different identities, and as a Tongan, to be specific. I am from Hillsdale, UMC in San Mateo, and it is, I would say, it is a pioneer church for the Tongan that comes into the Bay Area, and I'm fortunate to be still there. It is a predominantly non-Tongan church, but for the remnants of us Tongans who are still there, we are grateful to still be worshiping God within that church. So thank you very much for extending this opportunity to me.
Yes, Luisa. I have one question for you. I know that there used to be a separate Tongan congregation at Hillsdale. It sounds like there is not now, that you're worshiping with the Palenque congregation, the non-Tongan congregation. Is that what you're saying?
I don't want to go into detail about that, but yeah, as of let's say 2 months ago, we came together as one service. But we still have a Tongan service in the afternoon, but we are coming together as one church body.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Sifa?
Yes, I'm still Sifa, no change, still the same. I'm working at
thank
the
you.
Yeah.
Laurel UMC in Auckland, Tongan Church. I think that's all I would like to say.
So how long have you been there, Sifa?
I've been here for 6 years. I have been in ministry for 42 years in New Zealand and also in America. I serve nearly in every committee at our conference, at the Western jurisdiction, and also at the general conference. I near been in every area, and now is the time get ready to go home.
Not yet.
Not yet, right? But is home going to Tonga? Is that what you mean?
No, it's not time to go to heaven yet.
Yeah, in 10 years.
All my 5 kids, Shan, are here, and my baby son follow Eunice Tovo's daughter, and he will graduate next week for his PhD.
Woo!
Yay!
Congratulations.
Wow, yes.
Congratulations.
So he is very like Eunice Tovo's daughter. They were both activists, try to create a Tongan group living in a good neighborhood. And he practiced that in Auckland. We our church were very fortunate to have him, and he is working very hard with the young people in Auckland.
My name is Vaituolofi now, and I belong to the First United Methodist Church of Taulangau in Sacramento, which is a Tongan congregation. And I am, one of the women in the church. So, and I'm also a member of the Los Rios District Committee meeting on ordained ministry. I am very new to that, one of the 2 laities in the Los Rios DCOM. So it is great indeed to meet you. I cannot see your faces. However, spiritually, we are all intertwined with see one another's thoughts and prayers with regards to the subject we are here for discussion. So I'm so great to to be in this discussion group.
Now, one question I'd like, if we're talking about who is our neighbor, then I think it would be neat to talk a bit about where is Tonga and what are some of the dynamics of living in Tonga for people there. This is an island, and the islands in the middle of the Pacific. So go ahead and say, if I didn't know anything about Tonga, how would you describe where Tonga is and what it's like?
My pleasure. It's in the South Pacific Ocean, and exact position is I'm not too sure, the latitudes and the longitudes, but we are not far from Australia and New Zealand. We're neighboring islands with Fiji, Samoa, all those little islands scattered in the Pacific Ocean. And and it is also the only kingdom in the Pacific. So that's quite unique about the island of Tonga. It's not a very big island, with a population. There's many scattered islands, but there's only about 3. If Sifa and Eunice, so Tongatapu, Vavau, Hapai, and Eua, and the newest, those are the main islands that are being inhabited. And there's also little islands all scattered in the Pacific Ocean that belongs to the island. The population is about 100,000 plus, and majority of the population have migrated overseas. As you can see, we are all here. That brings us here to the United, where it's Yankees for the United for the American people, and it's coconuts for the Tongans. So you see a bunch of coconuts around here.
All right,
my pleasure.
Thank you. Is someone else like to pitch in here? So how you would describe the kingdom of Tonga?
Well,
Where it is.
in addition to what Vaituola is saying now, the kingdom is a Christian island. You know, it's a Christian island that started from the London Missionary Society missionaries, you know, during the, I say like 18th century. You know, there were explorers that, you know, that have been to the island, and from there's a lot of people going. So basically it's a Christian island, you know, with groups of islands. There were, like Vaituola said, of, you know, 3 main islands with scattered islands around it, but it's flat. You know, it don't have any mountain, doesn't have any mountain. When you heard about the tsunami, and you know, that was that happened this year, you know, there was no mountains. But I know that we say that the mountain of Tonga is in their heart, you know, in their heart. That's where the mountain of Tonga is. And we have our, I think the motto of the country, you know, that God and Tonga are my inheritance. So that means, you know, Tonga has been lifted up by the first king of Tonga, you know, while the most of the Pacific Islands at the time of war, they were looking for superpowers, you know, for their protection. Tonga didn't look for a superpower, you know, earthly superpower. They looked for God, you know. When the king was converted into a Christian, he, you know, he lifted up Tonga. He grabbed a lot of soils and throw it to the air and said that Tonga is protected by God. So I think that's the thing that we value so much, that our king at the time made a decision that affect and impact the whole island, and including us today. I think that's something that we are so proud of. And I think
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'd like to build on what you said, because I'm aware that there are, you know, there's a lot of Methodists, right?
yes.
On the island. And could either you, Sifa, anyone, talk about the different religious groups in Tonga?
Sifa?
Yes, the Wesleyan, the Methodists came first to Tonga, 1826. The second came to Tonga is the Catholic Church, and then the other churches later. Now, before, the majority of Tonga are Methodist, and the second for a long time ago was Catholic. Now the Mormon Church became the second to the Methodists in Tonga. And the Mormon Church used their mighty dollar to build nearly every village a church building. And you know, the American type of building, they were the most beautiful, clean, and everything in every village. Methodist Church they have a good history and very bad history. There were 2 missionaries from the Wesleyans. They divided Tonga into 2 groups. So that was the sad part. So there are other 2 parts of a congregation in Tonga, the Tonga Church of Tonga and other Church of Tonga. They were more likely Methodist, Wesleyan in Tonga. They are part of the family. So that's where we are now today. And other Pentecostal churches came to Tonga. And that is the very, very sad part in a small country, especially in the South Pacific, where Christianity came and divided more the people rather than unite us. And that is very sad. It was very good at the beginning, you know, when the missionary came to Tonga, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, there were, I think somewhere they were taught, and that is why there's no Baptist in Tonga. But the Baptists went to Vanuatu or other islands.
Yeah.
So they were taught first before they came. They don't want to see people divided among brothers and sisters. But now every Christian, especially evangelical Pentecostal church, they were everywhere. They compete with the Mormon church in Tonga. So
Thank you, Sifa.
yeah.
Going back into the question of the church, there's also, I think the predominant is Christianity. And the thing is, within the Christianity body, there's division. You know, there's Catholic, there's LDS, there's the AOGs and everybody else. There is a few Muslim existing in Tonga, and that kind of stirs up some different kind of trouble, if I may say. But it does exist in Tonga. But I just wanted to mention that because, you know, it's growing. Sorry. It's growing. I don't know how strong it is or how weak it can be, but it does exist. It coexists with the traditional Christianity that's already placed in Tonga. I forgot the question that you wanted to ask. So
It's all right. We'll come back to it,
Yeah.
Louisa. It's fine.
I'm gonna leave it at that.
Well, I want to pick up on what you just said, Louisa, about you can take the Tongans out of Tonga, but you can't take, you know, the Tongans out of the heart of a Tongan. And you mentioned about being connected and continuing that strong sense of connection. And this is vast distances we're talking about, right? Obviously. I'm wondering if you, and I don't mean just you, Louisa, but certainly you, anyone, could talk about how you maintain those connections when you are here outside of Tonga and so far away, and how you maintain those. And perhaps in that question, I've been thinking about, you know, when the volcano erupted and all the devastation that happened, that issue of being connected comes even stronger, at least in my mind. So I'm wondering, this seems to be a very important part of the values of Tonga, is to stay connected.
Let me add up to what Lucia had just said about you be a Tongan and you cannot take the Tongan out of you, even when you are in a different. I think that's happening when you are raised in a very strict surrounding. Like myself, I was raised within the Wesleyan in a very strict formation and structure. And even though I'm going any place and I hear other religion and other things, but nobody can take the faith which had been deep rooting in me, you know, from young age. And I think that's happened to the Tongans. When they go anywhere, they cannot uproot what they had been structurally raised with that. You know, raising in the island that caused us to feel kind of related, you know, and connected to the island, no matter where you are. You mentioned something about when the tsunami hit. When the tsunami hit and we heard about it the same night, we connect with my cousins and families all over the world through Zoom and praying. While Tonga is rained with ashes and stuff, most of us outside Tonga, we were praying. We were praying for the island. We were praying for the king and the queen. And so that's how we are very connected with them. And that's, I think it's in our culture and in our blood, the loving surrounding that you were raised. And because of the multi-living, it's not the father, the mother, and the kids. But when you're raised in the island, there's the father, the mother, the cousins, the uncles, and you know, up to 12, 13 people at home.
Generations.
The generation thing. And I think that's the thing that connected us, you know, connected and value us so much when we grew up. And then we listen to them. No matter, you know, it's your father and your father's brother, you still listen to them. You know, you still listen to them. And I think that's the connection that really into the Tongans raised in the island. And when we are here in the United States, we still feel that way. If we feel connected to anyone. So You know, and I'm glad when Lucia brought it up that, you know, even though we are here, but we cannot, you know, take our tongue. So like me now, I'm so proud when I'm wearing, you know, the lace, and everybody knows, oh, you from the island? I said, oh yeah, I am.
Are you going to a dance? Or are you going to a
Well,
dancing party or what?
What it sounds like, and this is a question to anybody, not just to Anisi, but when you talk about that, what the words I would use is a very extended, broad sense of family. What I'm hearing is community rather than a narrow sense of individuals.
Yes.
Now, I don't know if I'm hearing properly. And so what does it mean in your lives to live where community is such a high value? If I pick up what you're saying, Unisi, and it certainly matches what I've heard over the years. And I'm wondering if you could talk about that, because that is a contrast to a lot of what you meet in the United States with the nuclear family type idea. So I think we need to understand, we who are not Tongans would like to understand more. What's it really mean? How does it affect your life? How does it affect your decisions? How does it affect your behavior? Any of you that would like to respond? Sifa, maybe you could respond, because I know you spend a lot of energy sending things to Tonga. So,
Tualo?
Wow, yes, yeah.
Yes, go ahead, Vigil.
Let me just put in my 2 cents on that. And like, you know, like Eunice and Lucia and even Sifa have given the structure of, you know, of the dynamics of the Tongan families and cultures. You know, there is, you know, and that leads to the caring, the loving, caring, and sharing. You know, there is no limitation. You know, you can give until you get to, you know, to the last penny in your pocket. And, you know, as long as and it does not limit you. Like when tsunami hit, you know, my family and I don't have any immediate family in the island, you know, but hearing there were containers sent with goods and, you know, we collected everything and just bend them. Whatever churches was paying for the container, we, you know, there is connection about that. My cousins, you know, like St. Luke's, UNC, Pastor Haunga there, and, you know, even in the Crystal Spring, there were people, we all joined together and buy everything, you know, the most need, food, the diapers, you know, everything that is the immediate needs, and, you know, to send it. So there is no limitation there. No, there's no boundary like it is for the nuclear family here, and here in the United States. And not only that, but also in the other countries, you know, you limit. But this one here, like Louisa and Eunice said, you know, disciplinary. It goes to uncles, aunties, and even neighborhoods. You know, we keep an eye on one another's neighborhood. We share and care from a distance. So, but there is a strange thing, you know, I noticed that, and I don't mean to be, you know, putting down the people. There is, I have seen a lot of that, especially my generation's migrants to here, to the United States. You know, they are kind of centered and oriented around their own family and their own people. And that is a fact. I don't mean until you come and join, until, you know, joining the United Methodist Church, that has really expanded our boundary of what we call the neighbors, you know, our boundaries. And we see the homelessness. That used to be something, I must admit, I didn't really care about it. It was not, because we don't see that extremity of poverty back in the island because of the sharing and caring. But now, you know, it's so diverse in everything, the good and bad from both directions. And that opens your eyes, especially me. I have raised 5 children as a solo parent. And they, so far, hallelujah, praise the Lord, they have done well, you know, in the path that they have chosen. They are, you know, growing in church, and they each have got faith. But I'm saying, you know, like Sifa and has mentioned earlier in the beginning of the expansion that our children born and raised here, especially raised here in the United States and in the family of God, the United Methodist Church, you know, it has really it has really enriched their lives in addition to what we were brought up with, you know, knowing the neighbors. It's very expanded, and it's more than, you know, you get out there, the homeless. I must say that, you know, my oldest daughter is a youth leader here in Sao Langau, and a youth leader as well. They do here and then, you know, every 3 months or so, make a care package and go and give them out. That kind of, you know, with us, our generation, they are the first one that did that. You know, so that kind of woke us up, the generation that moved from Tonga. Hello, this is what neighbor. We preach a lot about that until you get out onto the black top. So that has been very enriching. And I don't mean that we have been self-centered or anything, but that's exactly how it has been. It's a very small island. We grew up and everybody knows everybody, you know, and the love and care goes, you know, beyond your family's blood family, but also everybody in your villages.
You've raised many significant things, and so hopefully I'll get to those. The one of them is the sense that one of you mentioned the impoverishment, you know, in Tonga, at least if you're comparing it to the United States in general. However, I'm wondering, I know, Sifa, that you have been worked very hard to send goods, significant goods to Tonga, and have gathered materials. I'm wondering, as Tongans here are working, maybe at the airport, I think a number of people work at the airport, or they used to anyway, but anyway, are in different economic circumstances, and maybe, you know, struggling financially here in the United States, and yet sending and connecting in, you know, and sending things to Tonga. And I'm wondering, this sense of connection and the economic issues, how does that affect the Tongan community here? It's like, you know, seeing that someone needs let's just say a refrigerator. I'm just making that up, but a refrigerator in Tonga, and that's a lot of money, and you send that, but maybe you don't have a big enough refrigerator yourself here, maybe. So how does that work? Because there's a deep value in connection and community and caring, and I hear that strongly. But how can that affect the life here when people are struggling? I mean, Tongans are struggling financially.
I think that, you know, with Tongan people, they live by faith. You know, that's what we heard a lot of people, they, you know, say, you know, leave tomorrow for tomorrow, you know, what people needs today. And if people in Tonga needs that, you know, we can give them, you know, with how much we can afford. But at the same time that we struggle, and we just like, okay, God will come through. And I had been with that idea for a long time, you know, and I think, you know, speaking for myself, I think most Tongans don't have much in their bank account.
Yeah.
But, you know, they always give. They believe in just giving, you know, like, you know, if somebody come from the island and they don't want to see that person leaving the United States with nothing. They give, you know, what they have, they can afford for that person to take it on. It's just a show of love and caring and sharing. But at the same time, you know, we struggle, you know, we struggle, but still we feel like that we are doing much better here than in the island. And we always think of those people. I always remember when my sister, when she was still in Tonga with her kids when they were young, and she said, oh, my kids wish that they could eat the chicken that you share the chicken that your daughter is having. And it touched my heart, you know, for those kind of family talking, you know. So in that way, I tried to share what my daughter had and my nephews back home. And I think that's the spirit of the Tongans, that they are here. They are here looking for a better place to live. and also for their family too. Because what we saw here that Tuolo mentioned about the homeless, in Tonga at the time we left the island, there was no homeless like that. You know, there was no homeless like that because people, they can go to their uncle's house or their aunties or their nieces and asking for something to eat or leftover or something, and they were freely given. So, but now I think it's different back there, you know, different back there. So in that way, we don't see many people in the street, but that's what the people were saying. So it's very different. But coming back in here, in what we brought here to America, we thought that, you know, we are doing better here, but we still think of our people back home.
Yeah, if
It
it,
just
Can I
seems to me,
can I just add on to what Eunice, you know, piggyback on that question. Is it Selby? I didn't really get your name. Forgive me.
No,
Is it who's asking the question?
that's
oh, I'm Shan
Lucia.
McSpadden.
Say again.
Shan McSpadden.
Okay, all right. Sorry, my dear. But
No, it's fine. It's
well,
fine.
I hear what you're saying. You know about, you know, with the you see that it's a distinction of the cultures. You know,
Yeah.
you live on a budget here, which I have started instilling on my kids. You know, I advise them, you got to do, you know, you have to be wise with all your resources. And, you know, so that because like Eunice has said, they do not have it in their DNA, what we have right now. You know, we may be instilling them to love, care, and share. However, like Eunice say, I can give away the last piece of bread and I'll still survive. With my kids, they won't. I remember back in the days when my son, who's given me my 4 grandchildren, you know, he would say to me, "Mom, why do you give money to the man who comes to church and you don't buy me my pair of shoes from Payless that's only $35, you know, back then?"
Yeah.
And I said, my dear, you know, you always have to have the heart to love and to give. I can always buy you a pair of shoes the next time, you know, But when you have at least, you can always give, you know, because, you know, they come in, you'll always be, I had, you know, you had me, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, so that is the thing, you know, it is, and just to go back to the DNA of the Tongan, you will travel around the world, but you can never take the Tongan heart from us, you know, so sharing and caring, it goes no boundaries, you know, you will give away and to go back to the you know, biblical wise, you know, give an extra shirt, regardless if it's your blood or not. You know, you walk an extra mile, you know, that is how you help. And that's my mindset about what I have, my neighbors here. You know, I walk an extra mile, I walk, you know, have it in mind, you give an extra shirt. And after I have a whakaata at church, I have the mind of the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes. And like say, it goes beyond your imagination, you know, because
Well, you know,
I have a
thank
God
you.
that provides.
You're
Welcome.
bringing up something. I am talking over you a bit because I really want to pick up what you're saying. It seems to me you are focusing on something that I really want us to talk about, which is to think about the deep values in the Tongan culture.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it seems to me,
Yeah.
I'm hearing connecting and giving and community, but that's what I'm hearing from you. And I'd like to hear, how would you share with any non-Tongan the deep values that are in the Tongan culture that just are there for you in your daily life and in your relationship to the community? Because I think that's powerful what I'm hearing.
I think
Thank
Lucia
you.
has something to
Go
say.
ahead, Eunice. Yeah.
No, I think Lucia, you know, has something to say.
Oh, well, yes, I want to be sure everyone has a
Yeah.
chance to speak, which is why I'm
Right.
shifting around. So, but okay, Louisa, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, thank you. Just a little bit. The notion that comes to my mind when I hear all these sharing from everyone is that if you wanna get to a place, faster, you go by yourself. But if you want to get further, you take everyone with you.
Yes.
Because everybody has
Amen.
something to contribute to the journey or to the task or to the work at hand. And that's very true in our community, because everyone pitch in no matter what. For example, in our funeral situation, we come together as a church community, or we come together as a community co-workers or family, and we put money together to help the family that's affected by the funeral. The same with wedding, and even the same with any church activity that we hold at church. Everyone comes together, everybody counts, and everybody has something to contribute to the work. And that's like a deep rooted in our sense of community and a sense of connection to each other. I also wanted to point out something that kind of deflect the conversation a little bit, for especially my experience in my church, because we are, let's say, under the non-Tongan part of the congregation, and the leadership from before has been men, white men, and let's say people with money, you know. But as things have changed, Tongans are starting to take a position in the church structure. And I think that presents some kind of conflict within the Tongan ourselves, and even between the Tongans and the non-Tongans. Because I think the idea to help each other is the same, but the way that we do work is a little different, you know, because the non-Tongans will come and do the same work different from how we do it. And the way we do it, the non-Tongans will look at us like, okay, you're doing A, B, C, D, E, while we do A and B and get there. So I think that's a part of the community, is that it's good. It has its pros and has its cons, like everything else. So
of course,
yes, we try to get something done, but we have a certain way of doing it, because we also see who's at the table, who's discussing this issue, because we have, like, you know, hierarchy. We have hierarchy in our Tongan culture, whereas here in America, everybody is the same. You say whatever, and everybody agrees with it, your idea goes. But in Tonga, we look at is there like a ho'eki at the table? Is there like an elderly at the table? Is there, and I think that's a dynamic that we're still trying to see how we're going to balance that energy and balance that authority, so that everyone, for myself, I was born and raised in Tonga. I came here when I was 19. So I would say I get the best of both worlds. The Tongan, I was raised strict Tongan Wesleyan. And then when I get here, I get an American education. So my world is kind of conflicting a lot of times, because I want to be true to the Tongan tradition, but then I want to be true to the, you know, whatever America has for me as an independent woman, as you know, as a working mother, whatever you call it. So there is always that conflict, and we're trying to balance that authority and that energy. But within that attempt, there is fallout, you know? And I think we're still, from my experience, it's a lot more conflict within the Tongan community, more than the Tongan versus the non-Tongan. So having said
Louisa?
that, I'm gonna let Sifa and everybody else
I want to pick up something you said, Louisa, that I had in my questions. And that is, you mentioned hierarchy, and you mentioned who was at the table. Those two things. And then Unisi, you talked about the king of Tonga, and going way back, but continuing to today. So I'd like to understand, when I think about hierarchy, I'd like to understand a little more about how Tongan society is structured hierarchically. And as you said, Louisa, it seems to carry over here. People have a certain place in the society, depending on different factors. So I really would like to hear from all of you about that, because I think it's very different than for non-Tongans to understand, because it affects how you make decisions. you affects how you bring things together. So, and so I'd like to hear certainly from you, Sifa. You haven't said too much, and so I'm going to push you a little bit.
Give him a good nudge.
Yeah, but I don't mean just you, Sifa. I really want to help us understand this way hierarchy exists in the Tongan culture and how it affects your church life and how it affects your personal decision making. That's my big question. So thank you, Louisa, for bringing up, because I definitely wanted to get to that. So I'm wondering, Sifa, I know I'm pushing at you a bit, but I'm wondering if you could talk to us about that some, and other people as well. But I'm
unmute, Sifa.
Thank you, Mother Chen, for, I would like to focus more on the Tongan at the church and how we define neighbors in our world today, rather than many years ago in Tonga.
No, I'm talking about right now. I'm talking about right now, Sifa.
The Tongan church is become a little Tonga. Tongan people try to create a little Tonga for many purposes. The first purpose is to serve the spiritual life. The second one, they try to serve it as a cultural place to serve their cultural needs. And also they sometimes they use it for a place where their family, they can come together. And for the good things, our Tongan culture in many ways very helpful to build up the life of the church. On the other side, our Tongan culture really divided the church in different ways. Our Tongan culture is a very hierarchical society. Since from nearly 1,000 years ago, that there is a God, there is a human, there is a lower, there is a king, there is a nobles, there is all sorts of things. I came from the lowest part in our Tongan hierarchical in my village, and also and because I'm the baby in the family, I am the lowest of all the lower people.
You was the lowest of the low.
Lowest of the lowest. Yeah.
That's exaggerating.
But in Tonga, Shen, that the baby of the family always the most beautiful one, the most handsome.
Oh,
yeah. That according to me. But yes, that is where the sad part, the good news, family are very helpful to build up the church, build up the community, build up many things. They use our culture and our family structure to serve not only the needy in our own family, but also the neighborhood. I saw many Tongans now serve homeless, serve their neighborhoods and other things. They are doing very well right now. They are participating in many ways. The other problem also in that area, we become more and more selfish. We serve only our own people, our own family, like myself, where it focused more on my own children and grandchildren. But anyway, in a church family, we learn more and expand our understanding what it means to be, how to live in our neighborhood. I can talk more. Where I serve now, that is my first Tongan church after 35 years serving in the Palangi church. So I work hard to practice what I learned, and how can I and my Tongan church live in Auckland, outside a community. We are very diverse, Asian, Black, Hispanic, white, and I think that is where we practice how to live with our neighborhood. And there are some simple things that we try to do. The first one is keep our church clean, inside and outside. Many Tongan church, they are very good. They got a lot of money, but did not clean their toilets. They are simple things.
Not ours.
In our church, where we need to clean the toilet first before we preach the good news.
Amen.
And also the food. That's one thing we try to do. Keep food. Food is part of our Tongan things, but make it simple. Don't try to spread the food on the table. What a waste. And many people, we try to land that area. How can we be a good neighborhood? And also we serve distributed food to our neighbors. And we had a very good relationship with Asian. Our young people, they have a special relationship with the Black young people here in Auckland. And I'm very happy to see my young people work on that area. We have a hall where there is a basketball court, where they invited the other groups to come and play with them in our church. We cook food for them. Anyway, next person to talk more, but I can't wait to talk more. How can we live with our neighbor within the California-Nevada Conference?
I want to relate to that. I think, when Lucia was, brought up with that one, the whole Asian stuff, I think looking at it as a hierarchical culture, but to me, I look at it as a very respectful society. That they respect the king, the structure of the countries. That we have the king, and then he has nobles, and then people, and it is true that we are known as the commoners, and most of us are serving the nobility and the king, but bear in mind that some of us serving them, they are blood related. They are blood related, and they feel like it's their duty to serve the higher status people in their in their family. Like Sifa said, Sifa is the youngest and he's a boy. In the culture, they respect the eldest daughter. So the eldest daughter's kids act like a fahu or mhiktanga, or they kind of rule among their uncle's kids. So that's how the culture is. And I think when it comes to funeral and wedding, that's where the status of our culture is based. And it's very, for us, we are proud of it. We are proud of our culture and that, and people look at it like a hierarchical thing, but for us, we are proud of it, to show that that my dad's sister is like a higher in status, on me. So in that way, that that's some of our culture that we are proud of. And one thing when it comes to the church, we respect the elders. The elders. If somebody who is 80 years old, or in a meeting, and whenever he's speaking about an issue at church, the younger ones listen to him. And I think that's something that in our culture that we truly respect. That when we respect of the elders, and people were just, oh, he's so wrong, he's so outdated, which is true. But deep in our heart, we respect. We don't know how long he's going to be with us. We need to respect his wishes or something like. So that's something that that I kind of relate to it. And one thing when it comes to church, I'm in an all-white congregation, and I know they all rely on pledges. They put their pledges every time. Tongan churches, we don't put pledges. We have misinale, yearly donation and annual, donation, because we are not people that we save up. We save our last 2 paychecks before the misinale. It all goes to the misinale. Don't care, we wait for the next paycheck. That's how we do it. That's how the Tongan churches are surviving. With their budget, how much their budget. If their budget is 100,000, believe me, that church will have the misinale double or triple that amount. That's how the Tongan churches are growing. And plus, in the island, we still have our Sunday school and youth program and young adults. And that's what we try to bring it to this country. Everybody tried to take their kids to Sunday school and take them to the youth program and stuff. And that's how the growing, the church is. And I think maybe there's one thing that we try to, to continue here, but, too bad we're too old. We cannot be able to have more children so we can teach them those kind of things. But, but that's how the Tongan culture greatly impact, when we are doing churches here in the States. And I think Lucia has more, from Hillsdale, because I think you still have youth and young adults that I know, and also Talangau.
One of the things I really want to get to, because it's unique to the Tongan churches, it's you won't find this in the Palangi church or the churches in the same way. So it seems to me that the church is the center of life for the Tongan community, the Tongan families. And if I'm wrong, by all means, say, no, you're not right. So how are, the lay people involved? I mean, the women, the men, the youth, the elders, how is that? What's the picture of that, of the lay people being involved in the church? I wonder, Eunice, do you want to start it? Go ahead, Eunice, you start, then other people can come in.
No, I was, I was thinking, the way of worship in the Tongan community is very different with the Palangi, way of worship, because, I see in the bulletin with the Tongan churches, the laity are the co-worshippers with the whoever is preaching. And the most important one for the Tongan community's worship is the preacher. Prepare a spiritual sermon so people can feel that they are spiritually fed, for the day. And the laity, they provide the music. There's something in the Tongan community, the antema, the choir, that's beautiful. And they sing, and if there's no instrument in the church,
yes,
they still a cappella, they still, sing a cappella. And that's the thing that draw us to the worship, because we can sing, the Bible said, make a joyful noise. So Tongans, they can sing, and whatever they sing, it's really good. And I think that's the thing with our way of worship, that we love the singing, singing the old hymns, because, those hymns, the Methodist hymns have been translated into Tongans, and they put it in the same harmony or whatever. And it's really good. And the wording of the hymns, it's really speak for everybody in the worship. And I think, combined everything within the worship. The Palangi church, it's only for an hour or less than an hour.
Right.
More than an hour, they start getting up and leave.
The Tongan is 3 hours.
The Tongan church, it's not an hour. It can go for an hour and a half. Some church go to 2 hours. And it is, I think that's the best place to be on Sunday if you go to a Tongan service. But, like me, I'm with the Palangi church. I'm used to their bulletin and used to the hymnals and stuff. But still, when you listen to the Tongan hymns, it just melts your heart when you hear the voices and stuff. And I think that's the type of worship that we brought. And every time I hear some choir, they sing at our conference, and you can see those people, they sing their heart out. That's how the Tongans are. They sing in their, during worship services. And I think Sifa's church has a big choir, and they have young adults choir and stuff. And I'm planning to go there Sunday to listen to their music.
Very good.
Thank you, Anisi. Sifa, you had wanted to say something, I think.
No, if Ingi will come to my church on Sunday, please bring with you a police record. We like to check you before you come inside.
Gee, thank you very much.
immunization record.
I'll bring my
Jen.
vaccination card.
Shane,
Yeah, right, right.
Shane,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, Sifa, I got the message.
yeah, I and Nisi were together at school and also in ministry, and I married to her cousin.
Oh, dear.
Mhm.
So I really know what I'm talking about. I'm scared of these people.
Well, Sifa, I never had any question that you knew what you were talking about. But
But you
You
know,
know,
Shane,
I'd like to hold up the image that, as we close, that Unisi
Yeah.
raised about coming to the church and the spiritual center,
Yes.
you
right?
know,
The
Shane,
spiritual center of
yes,
the Tongan life. It sounded to me like you were
Amen.
saying, and if I'm overstating it, please,
No, that's it.
I'm just trying to think as a Palangi, as a non-Tongan, what I'm hearing.
Mm.
And it seems that time is not an issue. It's being in presence of the community, in the presence of God.
Mhm.
A huge
Amen.
value difference then, as you know, Palangis. And something that Palangis have to understand, that time is
Mhm.
not this measured
Yes.
commodity for the Tongans. The other is the value of the church in the weekly life
Mhm.
of the Tongan family. And since we're at the point where we need to close, but I'm understanding that it's very likely that people are different church activities during the week.
Mhm. Oh, yes.
Is that
Mhm.
true?
Yes.
Yeah.
And-
Mhm.
And what would be some of those activities? What would it be? A woman's group, a Bible study? What would it be?
Mhm.
Shane, I did ask Stacy, our DS, if she's thinking about moving myself from my church. I don't want to go back to a Palangi church. At the Palangi church, I will preach every Sunday. Tongan church, I preach here at my church. I preach only once a month on the first Sunday because I have many lay preachers.
Amen.
And by the end of the year,
Yes.
I still have some people they did not preach. And if I will not use them, they will be very upset. So I part of my job to use what I have by motivating and training my lay preachers, and they are very good, both men and women.
Yeah.
At my
Yay.
church on Saturday, from Monday to Sunday, we were very busy. Fortunately, that we have a property good enough, but not big enough. Property that good enough, but not big enough for all our activities. So we have Monday family activities in their home. Tuesday, we come together for our small groups.
Excuse me.
Thursday, our choir practice and another group. Friday night, that is the night where we collect donation to help some needy people. Saturday, we're men at the hall, women fellowship at the other hall, children in another area, all youth. Saturday night is so noisy and crowded, and also food are part of our gathering. And Sunday, we all come together. Our service at 1 o'clock, and we leave from the church after 1 a.m. Monday morning. So, but the reason why I'm talking,
You see the
because,
time?
yeah, one of our problems, because in a church where Tongan, Palang, and other area, we, the Pacific as Tongan, we're looking at the church is more like a community place where we go there every week. The Palangi church, the Palangi people not thinking on that way. But the Palangi were the most powerful people in our church. I know 2 churches. They can't be able to give one property to the Fijian. They would like the Fijian to come together with them. I know the main reason because they help for the financial need of all the churches. Unfortunately, the Fijian, like the Tongan, they like to see the church as a community home where they go there every day of the week.
Yeah.
And that is one of my concerns, how many Palangi church make decisions. They would like the Tongan to come and do the things they want them to do, but they don't want to go to the Tongan church and worship in Tongan. So that is a main concern to me. I stop there and somebody can speak.
So as we close, thank you, Sifa. That's actually the early part of what you said is a great way to close in terms of it's clear that the church is the center of the Tongan life. And that your description of, the activities, whatever they might be, in the congregation. And I image from what you said, this value of family and community together, where time is not an issue, being together and praying, worshiping, working, celebrating, being sad together, all of that is community, and that's critical. Now, am I summarizing what you said properly?
Yes.
Because it is powerful.
It's
It's just powerful in that image of the community, not the individual, the church as the center, the hierarchy giving a structure to how decisions can be made, and being respectful in doing that. So I want to, that's kind of what I'm hearing, and maybe there's other things. I know that Selby will be working with this, and editing it. And she may see and hear things that I'm not summarizing here. I don't know. But I want to thank you so much for sharing deeply and vulnerably. I mean, you were all sharing very vulnerably when you talk about, the dynamics of your culture, the dynamics of living a faithful life as a Tongan, truly Tongan, at the same time in culture that has different values or different ways of doing the same values. And I'm just very touched. I'm honored and I'm touched.
Thank you. Thank
and
you.
I want to thank you
Can I
for
finish?
Your willingness to participate in this discussion.
The pleasure, Shan. Pleasure.
Can I say something, Shan? There is something that I forgot to mention earlier. Sorry, Selby. I know we're over time. That in Tongan meetings, it's always start with a prayer and always end with a prayer. And I think that's something that normally whenever we have a meeting, especially in church or a group or anything, it's always start with a prayer and finish with a prayer. And I would like to say a prayer to end our
Would you please,
meeting.
Onisi? Thank you.
And I will say
Thank
it
you,
in our
Onisi.
language. Okay, let us pray. Odo maf ka mai whakahevana a whiona. Whai he hoa whakakoloa koe ni ko ke omi ma ki mautolu. Ke mauwhaia e whepotala no aki mo e wahe aki. Tu unga pe i ngai tāpu aki ko ke omi ma ki mautolu i he whanua mulini. Ka ku mau whakawheta i o tua ko hoke I kau mo ki mautolu. Ka ku mau kore te o tua ke whaitāpu ki nānge. A ki mautolu hono kotoa. Uma a e mau Conferenisa e California Nevada. Lo tua whaitāpu ki nā e mau piso pe. Ka pehe ke kapneti. Pehe ke kau whai whekau hono kotoa pe. Ka mo ki mautolu e o tua a ku mau kau. I he ngā ue o wheitu koe ni. Hifa tāpua ki pa hifa. Ke lesi maa ki mautolu I koe ni me ka hau. Whataha me kelesa e ki ko si sukalaisi o whalahe o tua koe tamai. Whiohi me lau maali e maa oni. Kena whama I a te mautolu pe whai peo tae ngata. Pe tae ngata. Amen.
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 Amen.